Have you ever wondered how gratitude can lead to more success in your life? Hey, I'm Sam, and this is Super Awesome You Brave Enough Today, a podcast for anyone who's ever stood in their own way, second guessed their dreams, or let fear make them smaller than they really are. Each week, we'll talk about building confidence, showing up scared, and taking one small step towards the life you actually want. You don't have to be fearless, you just have to be brave enough today. I've been thinking a lot about gratitude, as I often do, in fact, because I start every single morning with a gratitude practice in my journal. I open up my calendar slash journal, I look at the previous day, and I think of one thing that I am grateful for from that day or just in general in that moment in my life. I do my best not to repeat things that I'm grateful for. So if I recently wrote that I'm grateful for having food or I'm grateful for my apartment, I don't want to just keep writing that every single day, even if that's true. And sometimes it can be really difficult to come up with something that I'm grateful for that day. And that's what sparked this podcast episode topic because I realized I might actually be doing something really interesting in my brain, and I think this is part of why I have read and I've heard, and perhaps you've heard and seen this too, that gratitude leads to happiness. And I've been wondering, like, how does that work, right? And I'm no expert on this, and I'm certain that there's tons of research out there on this exact topic, but I started thinking about it from at least my perspective, and maybe it will connect with how you might think about it yourself. So when I'm sitting there trying to think of something that I'm grateful for today, what am I really doing in my brain? I am taking a catalog of everything that I currently have in my life, and I'm trying to come up with as many things as I possibly can that I have. And those big items appear often, right? Like broad strokes, I might be grateful that I'm healthy today, that I'm feeling good today, that I've got a loving spouse, that I've got an adorable dog. Those types of things are kind of obvious to my brain, and most likely because I interact with these individuals or these settings, every single day of my life, and they play a big part in who I am and my comfort and my safety. But if I've recently written about them, and like I told you, I don't want to repeat them, I have to dig a little bit more to come up with something new. And in order to do that, I have to, like I said, take a catalog of other things in my life. So what's happening in my brain then is I'm starting to scan my environment and scan the timeline in my head and think about recent memories and start to wonder, what are other things in my life that I just don't even know are there that perhaps I'm quite grateful for? And so then that leads me down to a second category of things that I overlook every single day in my life, and turns out that I'm quite grateful for them. We often don't feel grateful for our health until we're sick, right? And I don't know if you're like me, but those first couple of days, whenever you start to feel better after being sick, you just feel like $1 million, right? You are so happy, you're feeling great, your body's back to normal, whatever ailed you before is gone, and you just have like this new lease on life for a couple of days, and then it goes away, right? That feeling goes away. And that feeling goes away because it just becomes background noise. And it's easy to ignore the fact that you are now waking up and able to take a deep breath without any kind of an issue, or you're able to walk around the apartment without your knee hurting, or you are able to hold down some food without running to the bathroom in 10 minutes afterwards. All of these things just become status quo. And that's really easy to overlook. But it's also just as easy to take a moment and think about that if you've been healthy for a while, to just say, wow, I'm actually really grateful that I'm healthy, that I'm feeling good enough to take a deep breath without my nose being clogged, that I'm not sneezing every couple of minutes, that I'm not coughing every couple of minutes, that I'm not living on a supply of Dayquil just to make it through the day. And that's great, right? So there's a moment now where your brain took something that was just background noise, brought it to the forefront, and attached a positive and joyful feeling to it. If you did this on the next day, so now that day you realize you're grateful that you can take a deep breath without having to blow your nose or anything like that. And that's a wonderful feeling. So then the next day you don't want to repeat that. And you've already mentioned other topics that week. So you go back into your brain, you start thinking again. And this time you're like, wow, you know what's amazing? I can just go to my kitchen sink and drink some tap water. I live in New York, in New York State. The water is fantastic here. And I'm, very grateful that I can do that. I don't need a water filter to drink water in New York City, which is just truly amazing. And so that's a cool thing, right? I mean, that's cool, A, because I live in a state and in a city with very clean water. B, I live in a country where like water is required to be clean. And that's a wonderful thing because unfortunately, in many countries on earth, clean water is not just a given. And people fight for clean water and they struggle for clean water. So the fact that I can just walk to my faucet and push it up and then here's clean water coming out of it right at the ready, that's pretty amazing. That's something that I'm deeply grateful for. So then that's the next day. And I keep going and I keep doing this every single day for a week, for many weeks, for now years I've been doing this. And you reach a point, of course I'm going to eventually repeat some things, but try not to within a week or 2 week period. But you reach a point where you've effectively trained your brain to not ignore things in your life that you have. And you're also specifically training your brain to kind of take a catalog of what's available to you now. Gratitude requires that you are present. It requires a cataloging of things that you currently have access to, whether that's internal, like your health, or external, like a safe apartment or a loving spouse. But all of those things are things that you currently have. You are rarely grateful for something that you don't yet have, like some future moment. And you're rarely grateful for something that you used to have in the past. So it forces you into the present moment. I think the amazing thing long term about what happens once you start to do this gratitude journaling and this gratitude practice and you force yourself into the present moment is that at some point in the future, you will be faced with some kind of a challenge. Let's imagine that you're starting a podcast or trying to restart a podcast or grow a business, or you're trying to quit your day job so that you can go full time with something that you really love instead. And you are struggling to kind of hit that stride. You're struggling to find something that works. It can be really easy in that moment to just kind of feel annoyed, frustrated, pack it all up and quit and walk away. You're not seeing the progress that you want. You're not feeling like this is actually something that can come true for you. And, your brain's trying to convince you to just stop and spend your energy instead on your day job that you actually really hate. And, it's just saying, oh, wouldn't life just be simpler if you just kind of like stopped with this dreaming and got a day job instead? So let's imagine that you're faced with this kind of struggle. It's really easy then in that moment to just be like, yep, I agree, brain, pack it all up. I don't want to do this anymore. I think a practice of gratitude journaling and forcing yourself into the present moment and forcing yourself to look around you for things that you have access to is really a way to practice looking for opportunity. So, yes, you haven't yet found a way to grow your business or you haven't yet found a way to quit your day job, but you believe that you can find an opportunity still. Maybe you just need to tweak your sales strategy. Maybe you're talking to the wrong people. Maybe you don't know the type of person you should be targeting yet, and you want to change your marketing strategy. Maybe you need to read a book and learn from someone who's done it, you know, done the thing that you want to do. You start to kind of shop around for another way because your brain has taught you that no matter how bad things seem, you can find something positive, right? And it's also taught you that there might be a lot of things in your life that you haven't yet tapped into, that there might be things that you currently consider to be background noise, same as with the gratitude practice, that in fact are tools for you to use and to grow your business or to allow you to quit your job in the next 6 months, year, 2 years. I think that's the really powerful thing about gratitude and how that can lead to happiness because you start being grateful for all the things that you have, which forces you into the present moment, which forces you to take stock of all the things that you have access to in your life that you might have previously ignored or not even thought about, which then allows you to see potential opportunities in those things and realize that maybe you have more than you thought that you did, and maybe you have more access than you thought that you did, which then allows you to execute against that opportunity, which hopefully then allows you to find a way to break through that lull that you're having or that challenge that you're facing and overcome that and then finally reach the goal that you're pursuing. I think that pathway is really powerful. And that pathway allows you to just repeat that process. You can walk that pathway over and over and over again. The next challenge that you face, you can get even faster at being able to identify, hey, I'm stuck here. But wait, I actually know this person that I haven't talked to in a while. And I bet that if I just like reach out, check in, say hi, and just say I'm working on something and I'd love their help if they're able to, maybe they can actually help me. And so you try it out and you're unafraid to try that out. Whereas the negative mind, the mind that's not trained in gratitude, not trained in checking in on the present moment, would ignore this relationship that you previously had or ignore this person in your life, or maybe not even think to ask them because you might be like, oh, but they're just going to say no, or I bet they're too busy. And you write it off even before you try. And I think that over a year or 2 years or 3 years of really practicing taking stock of what you have in this moment can open up a lot of opportunity. It can literally rewire the way that you see the world around you. And I think that's why grateful people tend to be happy people, because it's difficult to be unhappy when every single day you were reminded that you've got a lot of stuff, right? And not just material stuff. You might have no material stuff, but you've got a lot of access to things. You've got your health, or you've got your friends, or your family, and immaterial things, and you've got your experiences and your knowledge, and you might have now a lifetime of being able to call back on times that you were previously challenged that you overcame, and how they made you stronger or made you better or made you faster or whatever it is that you're working towards. That's a really powerful toolkit to have in your heart and in your mind. A grateful person is someone who is always willing to take a moment and spot something in their life that they still have. So even in the darkest of those moments, they can find that little light, that little glimmer of light that will keep them going and help them take that next step. That's what I always try to do, and that's why I specifically start my day with gratitude journaling by writing down just one thing, right? Just at least one thing that I'm grateful for in that moment, and try not to repeat it from the last 7 to 14 days, because that's forcing me to take an inventory of good things in my life, things that I might previously ignore, things that are easy to overlook that in fact I have. And that's a wonderful thing, because then that unlocks this realization that I might have even more wonderful things. There might be things that I haven't even thought about yet, that I've not yet noted that I'm grateful for. And I can just dig deeper and deeper. And I'm building and strengthening these neural pathways in my brain that are constantly seeking out positive things, things to be grateful for. And in fact, that happens because, I'll wake up the next day and my brain is already kind of thinking of things that I'm going to write the next morning. It's like, oh, be grateful for this little moment that you had right now. And that's going to be the thing that you write down tomorrow. So even in my day to day small actions that I'm taking, these moment to moment actions, my brain is already looking for that opportunity, looking for that joy, looking for those things to be grateful for. And having that mindset is so powerful, because then, as they say, when opportunity knocks, you are there to open the door, and you're not there to hear the knock and be a cynic and say, oh, whatever, it's probably just like a telemarketer, or it's probably nothing, or it's probably junk, and it's not worth my effort, and who cares, and just blow off the metaphorical knock on your door, right? Instead, you're thinking, hey, this could be the thing that turns it around, or let me just find out who it is, or let me explore this a little bit. And you never know, right? You never know. My hope this week is that if you aren't already doing gratitude journaling, start. That's your homework assignment, if you will. Get a sheet of paper, open up a notepad, note on your phone or on your computer, wherever you want to do this, but physically write something down, whether you're typing it or writing it down with pen and paper in the morning, ideally, shortly after you wake up with your coffee. Write down one thing, just one thing that you're grateful for in that moment. And you can start with the big, easy things to begin with, but then do your best not to repeat those things for the next 7 to 14 days at least. A fun thing to do, if this is kind of like a challenge for you and you want to be held accountable, is to find a gratitude buddy. And the first thing that you do in the morning with each other is you text each other the one or two things that you're grateful for that day. So you hold each other accountable. So you might pick your friend agrees with you. And so then in the morning, you're waiting for the text from them and they are waiting for the text from you. And a double bonus is that now you've got this nice little interaction where their thing that they're grateful for might also remind you of something that you're grateful for. They may think about things that you've never even thought about. So that can actually double up the amount of gratitude that both of you have in your life, because you're both looking at life from your own unique perspectives. So try to find a gratitude buddy. You can also hit me up at Super Awesome You on Instagram and on Threads. I will be your gratitude buddy anytime. Send me a DM and we can just keep this thing rolling. So with that, the goal always is to keep going, stay kind, and be brave enough today. I'll see you next week.